right? It's like, yeah, why can't we just use the model? Let's push it to get to that stage. And sure, there's risk and there's, all this other stuff with it, but I don't think we're that far from being able to, actually realize that. It's a huge opportunity once we can take advantage of it. And that
Yeah.
leads into the whole industrialized construction thing, seeing that end of it. That's huge. Companies who can take advantage of that integration are going to see value.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Activating Curiosity. I am Ryan Ware and really excited about this conversation that we're about to have. It is an area that from my career focusing in architecture and construction was a big part of what I wanted to achieve. So today we have with us Brian Skripac with the Design Build Institute of America. Hey Brian, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Ryan?
Doing good. Thank you so much for being willing to participate in the conversation. We crossed paths a few times, but I want you to tell a little bit about yourself before we dive into activating curiosity.
Yeah, no, sure. And first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation to be on your podcast. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yeah, my background currently now at the Design Build Institute of America really started architecture by education and practice for about 9 years, and then in 2005, I took the BIM tangent. I left the world of practice in a traditional architecture role, working on healthcare, higher ed projects, which is really where I spent most of my career. But then I started, I started working with technology and implementing it in different firms. I did that for really a short time, about 2 years, and then I went back to the design firm that I left to become a BIM manager. And I was in that role a couple different firms since then. Starting in architecture, and then in 2012, I had the opportunity to join a firm here in Pittsburgh, Astorino. The first project I worked on, we were between 100, probably like 125 person AE firm that also had this construction management group. And the first project that I worked on was a healthcare facility where we did it in what we called design-led design build. So we were the architect, the engineer, and we were also the design builder, the construction manager executing on this project, and being able to see this kind of continuation of what we were able to do as this single entity to deliver the projects was pretty exciting. We had eventually been acquired. Shortly after that, we were acquired by Canada Design, and they were really interested in this kind of design-led design build thing that we had built out. And, we had a similar, market segment profile that we were working in, and had the opportunity to work there till 2021 when I joined DBIA, and working on a lot of different projects. A lot of design build work, whether we were doing it internally, we may have just been the architect or just the engineer, but really seeing all these multiple facets was interesting. And then, looking for somewhat of a career change, happened to be in the right spot at the right time when DBIA was looking to really advance the technology conversation within design build. So I had the opportunity to take on this role and lead the conversation about BIM, VDC, and all of the what now is becoming anything tangential to that. There's so many other technologies that are evolving how we design, construct, and operate the built environment. It's really exploded beyond that. So yeah, that was my winding career path to DBIA.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think I first heard your name, yes, when you were focusing kind of transitioning into the BIM world. And that was that 2005, 2006 kind of area.
Yeah.
We're starting to look at it, most people know my background as an architecture as well. And your name was kind of coming out as that leader in that BIM area. Fast forward 20 years later, and like you mentioned, and talk about it a lot on the podcast is this industrialized construction area and this convergence. So I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that as it
Yeah,
relates to, you know, one being a really a delivery model and process and how that's evolved, and then accepting of this, technology within the industry throughout that delivery model. So I'm glad you shared your perspective, what you enjoyed about it inside of a
yeah,
firm, and how the firm started to kind of gravitate towards that. So I always like to kick off, the first question really being around knowing that most people who have a career like yours, where you've transitioned right throughout, whether your role was traditional practicing architecture to I see an opportunity here to help kind of solve a problem. So,
mhm,
and you could take this in a couple of paths because I know one, the DBIA versus yourself, but that, really that problem that you were like, you know what, this might be an opportune time, but like, this is what I've really been passionate about
yeah.
solving.
I, I think it's just efficiency, right? And I can remember, working on projects, detailing things, and okay, I'm gonna change something in my floor plan. This is going back to 2005. I gotta update my
Hmm.
floor plan. I gotta update the elevation. I go update this. Wait, there's a tool that I can just do that once. Why am I not using that? Oh my gosh, why that is? There's such efficiency. I just think about the kind of the unfortunate mundane nature of the construction document process, the traditional construction document process. And if like, wow, if there's if there's technology driven solutions that can take this away so I can focus on other things, how much better would I be? And thinking through the detail, not worrying about updating something in 7 different spots and going down the rabbit hole of
Hmm.
updating it everywhere. I think that was just the basic, insight, um, back in 2005, seeing that, be like, wow, I could do this so much. Oh, wait, I can get a rendering out of something that I'm building my construction documents from, and I don't have to go into another platform and do it. And wait, I can get my door schedule here. I don't have to update it, my plans, and
Right.
then go over to Excel to do it. Oh, wait, I don't have to do it. It was all of those things. And for me, having that opportunity, leaving practice, going into, working in that Autodesk reseller channel and having this, getting my hands on this new tool and going back to my peers in the industry, it was like, look at what we can do. This is amazing. This is great. And then I very quickly realized I don't want to be selling this anymore. I want to go do it.
Right. Now
And
implement
I
it.
went back and did it and implemented it in our firm, and, really tried to drive all of these experiences that I had and, try to move it forward. So, and it seems kind of simple, but it's just efficiency, right? We all,
Hmm.
design, design firms, there's inefficiency there. We do stuff in one platform, we do it again another platform, we do it again another platform, then we send it and share it. And it was just like there's a better way to do these things. I can be more efficient using this building information modeling tool that's out there. Um, and then, moving beyond that, it was how we collaborate. And that was, just aside from, design build. I wasn't thinking about design build back then, but I can remember a couple of projects in like '07, '08 where, the whole the use of Revit, which is what I was seeing in the market I was in. There's other tools
Right.
out there, but it was the architects were gravitating towards it, and then we saw the engineers start gravitating toward it. We had in Columbus, we had a large courthouse project where we had. I can remember by the end of the project, we could barely open the model to print out our record drawings, for our final deliverables for PDFs. It was so big, but we had all of this. And then the next project I was working on, we were starting to see the contractor work on it. And we had the opportunity. There was a large healthcare project here just outside of Pittsburgh we were doing with Turner, and seeing what they were doing and how
Hmm.
the information that we created as designers could be utilized in construction. That was another. I was like, hey, we got to break down these walls and collaborate better, and see how we can share this information, all the way to working with Ohio State and being one of the authors with my, colleagues from Messer, uh, writing the Ohio State BIM project delivery standard and understanding how this went downstream to owners. So, the challenge is really one of this connectivity, and life cycle management of a project, and, producing quality deliverables that can be taken advantage of the entire life cycle of a project to deliver better work for our owners.
I mean, there's so many. good things there to kind of dive into. I want to pick on the first word that you said, which was efficiency. And and I think, when we think about tools and all the technology, I mean, I actually saw an image on your VDC primer from the DBIA, and there's a off to the side is the digital pad. And I'm like, I bet most people don't know what that is, but a digitizing pad was a
Yep.
mouse that you would look at onto the side. There was no toolbar on the screen, so that's
Yep.
how I'm dating myself, but that's how I
I
started
remember
learning.
those. Yep.
Yeah, and CAD from hand drafting. But okay, let's go back to the efficiency. Um, there it's a business, right? Architecture firms are a business, and I think a lot of times that efficiency can relate to the success of the business and the bottom line, but it also has a human cost to it of like, yeah, who wants to keep opening Excel to do, door schedules, and updating it, and it's not automatic. So you did recognize that very early on that this intelligent system, which was at that time Revit, everybody using it, was about the human not having to go through something repeatedly, not
Mhm.
have to go through something that brought just, little value, if anything, to the other side. And then you started recognizing like, hey, there's something here where not only from a design, but a construction side to an owner side of linking all of these things together better so that you know we're all delivering a better project to the client but also experiencing something different. So is
Mhm.
that something that you felt as you went through it, like, hey, we all seem to be enjoying this a little better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, right? And people were I can remember doing product demonstrations and people are like, "Oh, you just did that quick. Oh my goodness." And I can remember taking experiences that I had on projects and pain points and showing other people be like, This is the opportunity that you have."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was big. I think the other thing was one of the things I was always interested, even in my early days of modeling and working with our project teams, are just, don't do things twice.
Hmm.
That's just a direct efficiency, but it was a balancing act too. At the early days of Revit, I mean, I think we people were excited about the availability of information and they were doing all these other things. And I think there was a little bit of a bump in the road of like, oh, well, we're making us do more drawings. It's like, well, no, you're making yourself do more drawings. You're like, oh, I can cut a
Right.
section every 5 feet. So I'm going to double the amount of wall sections that I have on my sheet because I can. It's like, well, no, that doesn't,
Yeah.
no, no, stop. Just because you can doesn't mean you should was a huge rallying cry back in the in my early days. It's like, well, should
Right.
I model this? It's like, no, why? Why would you do that? And I think it's interesting, even back then it was, do I model something?
Hmm.
How do I model this for the sake of getting it on the construction documents? And I think, not to go on, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but that's one of the things that still pains me about, construction documents and shop drawings really
Yeah.
being a existing hurdle to, the full embracing of what we can do with these models because we have to spend time modeling something, but 99% of the time our contract is that paper set of deliverables, so people
Right.
deviate from the model to get it looking right on the drawings, and that was always a historic challenge, but you had to get past that. But now we can build things now that everybody, people know how to model efficiently. It was always like, why would I model something half-assed
Yeah.
just so I
Yeah.
can overdraw over it and two-dimensional stuff? It's like that never made any sense to me, and that was always like the kind of people side of, transitioning that culture and the workflow of people to think about, like, do it here so you don't have to do it here. And if you
Yeah.
do it here, the structural engineer can take advantage of it or somebody else can take advantage of it. And, how are you gonna utilize it? And I think now that's where we're getting at in the industry, the accessibility of these models now becoming expected deliverables from project teams. We have to have higher quality, um, skills and output that we're doing. And I think what it's really going to flip is when we start, being able to rely on a model as a useful deliverable and not having to detail things like, how many times we have to say hot's on the right, cold's on the left, this little symbol means it's a brick unit as opposed to a 45-degree, dash line.
Right.
My boss at Astorino was like ringing that bell in 2012 when I joined them. He's like, why can't we just use, and that always stuck with me, right? It's like, yeah, why can't we just use the model? Let's push it to get to that stage. And sure, there's risk and there's all this other stuff with it, but I don't think we're that far from being able to actually realize that it's a huge opportunity once we can take advantage of it. And that
Yeah.
leads into the whole industrialized construction thing. Seeing that end of it, that's huge. Companies who can take advantage of that integration are going to see value.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, flashbacks to practicing, but that idea of, like you said, the model. What was the model when we first started in Revit? What was the model meant for? Right, versus those documents. Like, what is
Yeah.
a permit set versus the construction document set?
Mm.
um and figuring that all out and the level of model that you were going to go. And at that time we were not talking LODs, right? There was no
Yeah.
level of
Yeah.
design.
Didn't
It was
exist
just,
then. Yeah.
yeah, it didn't exist. And you mentioned it's like, hey, people were hiding things in wall sections
Yeah.
to, in an effort to speed things up. But like you said, there was a lot of over documentation of things. And working with younger designers, it was always like, what are you trying to tell the trades? Which trade are you
Yeah.
telling what in this wall section and this detail? So this connection, in the end, it has got to be enough information for someone to build, right? From
Yep.
a document set. But that said, we're going back to this. I'm going to pull back to the humans for a second, because as we're going through this transition, um, there is a level of resistance inside firms in 2005, 6, 7, and even here today
Mhm.
from a BIM modeling standpoint, which there is, that piece of it to those levels of design and a misconception of what a lot of these things mean. But when we think about that, resistance or those barriers or those obstacles, as you fast forward now, like what have we maybe have learned about the human piece, because people's a big part of it for you, that human piece, to help them see, okay, the model is an opportunity.
Mhm.
We may have always done it with documentation and paper documents, but how does the team see the model utilize it? How do they know that there's been a change, that there's been some sort of update, right? And through a normal bulletin process and things like that.
Yeah. No, go ahead and finish. I mean,
No, I
just
was
I
just gonna, yeah, no, you could dive in. I was just gonna say, like, what have you learned or seen that you're now, from your perspective, starting to help teams apply to get through that resistance?
I mean, I think that resistance is based on risk, right? There is a
Mhm.
risk to I don't know what may be wrong in the model or what can be assumed in the model, but I understand what the drawings look like and read, and I
Mhm.
understand that I've done my job to document that. I think that is still the prevailing issue for the industry, right? There's some, black box, you know, concern going on about what's in the model, or oh, I have a design option, or I have this other thing that's in there, and I don't want somebody to, be concerned with this. But I think it all goes back to communication, right? Using
Mhm.
technology doesn't alleviate the fact for us to communicate and collaborate with one another. And something you mentioned earlier, LOD. I've been part of the LOD committee. I think back in 2012 when I started here in Pittsburgh at Astorino. My boss Ron Delario was on the committee, and I got engaged in that. And to today, it is the most valuable tool to mitigate just that.
Mhm.
Being able to have this kind of pool planning effort on a project and say, this is how we're going to evolve our deliverables, this model based deliverable. These are the individual components. These are the level of development that they've advanced to and what they can be relied upon, and mapping out for people to be able to tell, for a structural engineer to have a plan to say that my structural columns and all of my steel framing is going to be at this LOD to be relied upon by you, the architect, and the rest of the team at this stage.
Mhm.
is valuable, right? It's not, I'm going to wait till 100% or 75% CDs. Yeah, I got it. Well, what are these incremental milestones? And yeah, maybe I don't have all the documentation done for that submittal, but it's been defined and thought out. And now I know where my ceiling's at. Now I know where the
Hmm.
bottom of that steel beam is. And now the mechanical engineer and the plumbing engineer can understand how much space they have and where they're going to route things through. But I don't need to wait till a set of construction documents come out and it says a W whatever on it
Right.
to understand it and see it. I think that starts to accelerate the ability to collaborate and communicate. I think the other challenge is having that knowledge and understanding at the outset of a project. And this is so at DBIA, one of the documents that our committee actually just published, not, it was in October we published it. We just presented it a couple weeks ago at our conference, is the VDC project leaders' roles and responsibilities on design build project. And we break it out into a DBIA primer feel where we, have three major sections, right? It's people, process, and technology. And we have 16 different implementing techniques throughout the document. And, this engagement and understanding about what people are going to do needs to start at the outset of a RFP and RFQ review. This is
Hmm.
what our deliverables are. Some owners may have very robust deliverables, like I talked about, working on Ohio State standards. We say, hey, this is what we need to address. We need somebody on the team to manage through this. Other owners may not have that, and that's
Right.
fine, but somebody on the project team needs to say, this is how we're going to use technology to meet our deliverables, which may be a stack of paper at the end of the day, but technology can be more efficient. How are we going to communicate? How are we going to collaborate? How are we going to integrate as a team to deliver this project successfully? And I think
Hmm.
that's another big important part of the people side, is who's leading that charge, having somebody that's skilled to be able to do that on a project and work with a team.
Yeah, I think you talked about risk. It's any new thing. We as humans, we all think like the worst case scenario. Like,
Hmm.
so fear is the first thing that comes in, and clarity is what we all want. And
Yeah.
by having, what you're describing as the LODs and kind of mapping things out, it'll bring enough clarity in setting those expectations. But even pulling back to that human piece of, hey, you've never done this before,
Yeah.
it is going to feel like you are in a relearn stage. It is going to
Hmm.
feel slower. It is going to feel, it is new territory. I always quote like Amy Edmondson, and that's what she focused on, that new territory piece of learning, learning to understand like you will struggle in this new area. And I think the construction industry, because of I always think, we do have low margins. There is that low um, kind of net profitability, that anything that is a risk is like, man, I could lose the business. And we talked about it on another podcast before. So you focusing on, hey, that human piece, like you're going, like, this is different, but here's the opportunity and advantages, which is where you kind of ended, where
Yeah.
design build is meant from a collaborative, it's not even alternative anymore, right? There's so much percentage being used
Yeah.
with design build now. It is almost a majority. But this delivery model is about solving things sooner,
Yep.
and that we don't need to be 100% complete with it, which means clarity, 100% clarity will not
Mhm.
exist, but there'll be enough for you to learn as you're evolving through it, and have enough information to be able to make
Yeah.
concise decisions as a team.
Yeah. I think that's important to understand, right? And yeah, and design build is no longer, alternative delivery model. Our, last FMI report, showed that nearly 50% of projects are being, delivered as design build, and that, traditional design bid build model, that hard bid is declining rapidly because
Hmm.
people know there's a better way to do things, and having a collaborative team under that single contract structure is advantageous, right? There's no blurry gray area, right? It's not, I'm the design professional and my job is to give the owner a set of construction documents, and that owner is going to take that, put it out to bid and do it, and somebody's going to go build off of it, and I'm going to
Hmm.
answer questions when called upon. And but my duty is to the owner, not the builder, and all the finger pointing that inherently comes from that. So having that design builder have that contract with the owner to provide design and construction services with the team underneath them in whatever form that design builder takes,
Hmm.
um, drives clarity in what the objectives are and how they get achieved. And I know there's oftentimes apprehension. Well, that's a general contractor and they're going to beat me up or whatever,
Right.
from a design professional. But looking at the same way technology evolves and has innovation, or the organizational structure of firms does. And the way that the firm I was at was set up, and having that single entity, that design led design build, drove significant value on the projects that we had. Those were
Hmm.
really great teams. The opportunity to, sure, once you got past the friction of putting the cost estimator next to the designer and this person next to the other person, once they worked out and figured, my boss said one time, he's like, stop complaining. He's on your team. He's like, your check comes from the same person. Work together. If it's going to take you 2 hours to save him 20, that's a win
Hmm.
for the team. Like, go, like, let's work through it. Right. It's a different mindset. It's a different culture. But
Yeah.
once you can bridge that, there's a huge opportunity. And I know I've even seen that a lot on the engineering side, where you have these, integrated firms that'll, you might have a group of mechanical engineers embedded
Hmm.
in a sheet metal fabrication shop. And I seen some of those firms across the country when I'm out doing presentation stuff, and it's amazing what they're doing. They're like, our shop drawings come right out of the construction documents. Our engineers are
Yep.
using fabrication ready parts from our thing. They plug it in. We hide all the other we turn off all the visibility of all the other extraneous stuff that they don't need for their construction documents. It goes out, boom, we hit it, and we finish up a couple things, and we're going direct to fab.
Yeah.
And that is efficiency. That is leveraging technology and an innovative workflow to be more efficient at the work you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. No, now you're talking my language, having spent a lot of time in direct digital manufacturing and prefab. I mean, back when I was running that digitizer pad right off to the side, it was part of CAM and machines actually making things.
Mhm.
So that was the 90s. Here we are, what, 2025. I'm so excited about that piece of it, for me to say, like, hey, that efficiency piece could come so much quicker
Yeah.
utilizing, and you have design build, but we're talking about design assist in some of these areas where fabricators can now come in, and we're doing shops during the design
Mhm.
so that we can speed up the build, right? Which
Yep.
is, when I think about some of the big challenges that we're facing, is we tend to speed up design. Like in our industry, we want architects to go faster. Well, contractors make revenue and earn revenue when shovel hits ground, right? As soon as
Mhm.
that shovel is in the ground, like, that's when they can start invoicing. That's the world that I think a lot of people came from and think about. And it's like, we need to actually look at design as a really huge opportunity to bring those specialty subs up, general contractors, as you
Mhm.
said, and learn from one another.
Yeah.
Like, know from an architectural standpoint, like, you get to detail things that are really important to detail, while other things that, they're not replacing you or taking work off. It's rising all ships, right? It's like bringing
Yeah.
everybody's opportunity for not burning through fees, not losing
Yeah.
fees in certain areas where, we both came from architecture. We know what that's like, by over detailing, over designing, not even having the right person in the room to ask the question. So you're doing it 2 to 3 times, as you kind
Yeah.
of alluded to earlier in the podcast. So I think that's a huge opportunity. And I looked at it when I was, started a construction company, that progressive design build was our opportunity to bring in more innovation,
Mhm.
prefabrication, speed those things
Yep.
up. So I'm curious um, what makes this really critical for the construction industry, that if we're at 50%, right, that, and it's not every sector, it's not every type of project that people are looking at design build. and what it could mean, but like,
Yeah.
what could it mean to the industry as more people start to adopt it, start to accept it? And I want to go back to relearning. I want to hit reset. I want to get out of default mode of
Yeah.
just design, bid, build.
Well, I think, and you're right, it's not for every market segment, right? If you're doing a one-time project, you're not building again, you probably don't understand the pains of what you had in design, bid, build to be able to move forward. And, I think it's having the right culture and the right fit, but the opportunity to do that, I mean, from an owner standpoint, I mean, there's a risk management, there's a shift of risk, right, for an owner,
Right.
which is an immediate win, right? They're not taking on the whole spear and doctrine aspect of it. That shifts directly to directly to the design builder.
Hmm.
So there's an immediate win, but I think the big things we look at, speed to market being an opportunity, achieving budget, higher quality projects,
Hmm.
the opportunity for innovation and how you procure teams. Those are all significant wins and opportunities that people are documented successes that we're seeing from design build projects. And then there's also, I think, if you're a repeat builder, which was, the segment I was in, right? Healthcare, higher
Right.
ed, there's a lot of, there's always work going on those projects. You had historical knowledge on projects that you were able to, go back and pursue work on, having that familiarity of teams and how teams work.
Hmm.
Having a qualifications based selection process, not a low bid selection process, really changes the game, right?
Right.
That familiarity, the execution, knowing that a team may have worked together. Hey, we're coming together as this design build entity, and this is what we bring. We've done our last 10 projects together, and we've worked with you on 3 of them. And, those are all things and opportunities that you have.
Hmm.
I think it also brings, opportunities from a quality standpoint, I think is big. And I think there's a win on the design side too. The first project that I worked on, this healthcare project, I can remember sitting in design meetings and having the designer sitting next to the metal panel fabricator and the curtain wall fabricator and saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, I'm looking at this," and them both looking at him and going, "Stop detailing it. Tell us what you want this profile edge at the slab edge where the two were transitioning. Just tell us what you want it to look like. Stop detailing." They're like, "You're not doing. We're gonna change it all. If you tell us that's what you want and that's what we have to build to, we're gonna once the drawings come out, we're gonna tell you it's not gonna work and you're gonna have to change it. You're gonna be mad at what it. Tell us what you want. Let us go back. We'll figure out a detail. Bring it back to you." He's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, there's an opportunity for design." He was able to achieve design intent without having to do some dumb detailing thing
Right.
where it crappy blocking trying to hold something up that was never going to work. It was ultimately going to change. We saw those type of things over and over again. I can remember our millwork and casework fabricator going, "Please don't give us 10 sheets of your standard casework details that you pulled off the shelf and don't apply to this project." They're like,
Right.
and this was in Revit. They're like, drawers and doors. Model the box. Tell us how many drawers and doors you want. We'll
Yep.
get in, and then we'll add to the model, and we'll show you the stuff, and then we'll do the details and do this. Just tell us what you want. Your spec tells us what quality standards you're adhering to. Don't waste your time on the details. So I saw that as an opportunity. For what got me excited was with the designers that they were able to spend more time for, like, "Hey, I have this expert on my team who's going to help me figure out this part that I'm probably not. I have an idea of what it's going to look like. I have experience. I have knowledge. I'm a professional.
Hmm.
They do this all day, every day. They're going to help me figure this out. They're going to offload that part. It's going to be in the shop drawings. I just approved it with them, and I can go focus on this other design part. Or I could have been focusing on sustainability outcomes or optimizing,
Yep.
the site or optimizing how doctors and nurses move through the space. Before I ever get to that, I have more time to do that stuff, which is where if I'm an architect, my highest and best use of my time is doing those things and working with my collaborative team to figure out the minutia of these details with the real experts who are doing it.
Yep.
And I think that's where, you talk about margins and trying to, so much of the traditional construction document process was about quantity, not quality, right? I have to get
Right.
all this scope documented for somebody to budget. But if I can be sitting next to somebody and say, "Hey, we're going to have this." "Oh, okay, cool. I got that. Yeah, noted.
Yep.
Well, You're going to have it in 2 weeks. Okay, great. I don't, then it's not, the finger pointing of, well, I never saw it, so it wasn't in my scope, and now you got to pay for it. All that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great story and kind of reflection that you just had, because everything starts bouncing back in my head as you're talking through it, having practice. First you started with it's not for everybody, and I think there is opportunity, and maybe we don't even know this because I came from a small firm in a small city before moving to Columbus, and I was using design build. Now, was it called that? I was using definitely design assist, but using
Yeah.
a subcontractor to do, MEP work alongside
You were
me.
collaborating.
So it was collaborating, right?
Yeah.
And then it was with those that were going to go build it, right? The team that was going to go build it. And that was the key for me. I fast forward, and I remember working on a project for a very large national GC in Columbus. And that is where it all started to kind of, trigger in my head of like, wait, like we need to be using design assist a lot more, bringing these sub trades in. I remember bringing steel fabricators and other groups in, but I think one thing that you said is most important here is a lot of times we go into a firm and you're new into the firm, and whether it's small or large, you kind of see how things were done before, and
Mhm.
the industry has changed. And I always say default mode. We tend to repeat specs sometimes because it's easier. And we're a very time poor industry, whether it's architecture or construction side, because, we have a labor force that is not meeting the demand,
Yeah.
and getting new recruits in and attracting more people into the industry. But we tend to, oh, well, that's how, we grab an old set of drawings and we just kind of follow it. And that's how we learn to
Yeah.
design and build things as we come through the industry. And as you just described, it's like everyone out there who's actually building it and fabricating, it's like, stop. like,
Yeah.
like this is how we actually do it. And you know, since it's called activating curiosity, I always tell people, like, I walked out on a job site and asked the metal framers when I was 26 or 27, like, hey, what can I do differently with this set of documents to make you more efficient?
Yeah.
Because I thought if they became more efficient, then their cost, one, they'd feel better as humans, but two, that might bring the cost down, because ultimately I felt like we needed to get the cost more in line, and I wanted to keep the things I wanted to keep as an architect,
Mhm.
not use the dirty word, value engineering, which has no true value. That's where I think design build brings this opportunity of, like, you are going
Yeah.
through a target value design. You are, progressive design. You can get into that as well, and how that functions. Like, there's huge opportunity to learn from one another, to
Yeah.
ask questions. But that means, Brian, then that you're probably seeing, as you're talking with people out there as well, or others from the DBIA, like, that's a culture shift. It's not only a
Yeah.
mind shift, it is a leadership from the person leading maybe the
Yep.
initiative to the leaders of the companies. Like, the culture shift has to come into what's called psychological safety area, where no questions are considered, you know, dumb, or like, hey, I can't believe you don't know that, and utilizing
Yeah.
people's development as an opportunity to downgrade them, because this is about exploration then, right?
I think it's also about having those experiences. And I think, we started this off with how did I get to where I'm at? I think all the different experiences that I've had going from architecture only and, then being in this AE firm and then seeing the construction side of it, kind of the last aspect of it that I saw, which and I don't remember if we talked about this before, was on the industrialized construction side. One of the last there was like two projects that I worked on at Canon Design, which were amazing. They were both amazing projects and amazing learning opportunities. One was this kit of parts medical office building that
Mhm.
we developed, which really leveraged all these prefab, templated, standardized components to quickly assemble medical office buildings with Kaiser Permanente. They were trying to
Mhm.
really grow. And our goal was to hit 30% efficiency, to reduce our design and construction time, doors open by 30% by leveraging all of these prefab elements, whether interior partitions, exterior walls, staircases, prefab staircases, structural systems, templated room layouts, and prototypical designs that they were these assemblies instead of a traditional stick assembly. So there was a lot learned there.
Hmm.
And then fast forward, we had a project in Los Angeles. It was a behavioral health center in downtown, just on the edge of downtown LA.
Yeah.
Uh, and there was a series of 5 buildings, and it was set up like a little quad campus, but there were 4 buildings that were exactly the same. That these were, clinical, administrative, like kind of dormitory houses. And the project started, it was a design build project that we were doing. We were the design builder as well as the architect and a couple of the engineerings. I think we were just structure.
Hmm.
MEP was external. And they said, hey, we want to start using our prefab group. We want to modularize this, but not doing it at the outset of the project.
Yep.
And while it was a great idea and the team wanted to take, hey, we have this great opportunity, I somehow got interjected, the VDC guy. Hey, will you work with our new modular construction group, help start figuring out the process for how we're going to do this. But it quickly became, that was the easy part. The hard part was managing the conversation between what the builder wanted. There
Hmm.
was a team of people in Lawrence, Kansas, in a fab shop that we were getting set up to build these units, put them on a truck, and ship them to LA. Understand the scope gaps of a
uh,
traditional design project, and having somebody in that transition from the DD to CD phase, now building shop drawing level models of
hmm.
walls and components, and saying, well, we have 3 equals, or yeah, here's the obviously the bathrooms were easy to do because they were repetitive, right?
Hmm.
Oh well, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, and being alongside the construction team, seeing where their pain points were about a traditional delivery process of something that was going out to bid, and really managing that interface was really interesting. I think having that
Hmm.
experience on the other side, knowing what the other team wants, makes you better at your core job, and being able to disseminate, hey, yeah, they're going to need this is how we need to do this, or this doesn't work. Those experiences are invaluable.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that, on a design build project, having that construction team member there, those trade partners there, and saying, hey, better for the next time. And
Hmm.
that's an opportunity for individuals to progress and learn, not only be successful on that project, but be more successful on the next one. And
Yeah.
having those conversations early. Be like, hey, I experienced this partway through. Man, if we would have had this earlier, and we could have told the architect that we can't go past 10 feet because we can't ship, we wouldn't have had all these different unit sizes and had to relay out some certain things. And like, it just would have been so much easier. But taking that knowledge onto the next project makes you a better designer, makes you a better
Yeah.
architect, engineer, builder, trade partner.
Yeah. And I think what you just described, I mean, I have been there, where, my past, I came from prefab side and people would want to bring it in way too late.
Yeah.
And you and I got a chance to kind of work on Kaiser. And I remember the first time I met with them and then flew to LA, they were like, we're going to flip this project to be prefab. Well, how far along are you? We already have a contractor and the bid docs are done.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is too late. Like, you are way past the point of changing a method of construction. One that what you described and what I'm kind of talking about here is that is why I think a lot of people get this perception of innovation doesn't work, right? Like, well, I went through this project and then we utilized this solution or prefabrication or whatever it was, or, well, it was too late, but did everybody recognize it? Was it maybe the wrong even delivery model? Because if you treat fabricators, as a normal shop drawing process, well,
Mhm.
this is not a product. It isn't a switch one thing out and you get something
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
You're describing this opportunity of recognizing, hey, first choice begins with how can we deliver this project? What are our options available to us as an owner? And it may, or an architect sitting and talking with an owner who maybe only builds, once in their lifetime or in their
Yeah.
business versus, as you mentioned, the Ohio State or a university or a
Yeah.
Kaiser. One, your first question out of the bat has to be, what delivery model do we have?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people think design build only works with ground up, and I don't think that's the case. I think it
Wow.
can work with
Okay.
tenant improvement just as well.
Yep.
In fact, I think it would change the vicious cycle that I think we all end up in commercial TIs of how the process feels exhausting for everybody. So, one, it opens up discovery of that delivery model sooner, going through collaboration, bringing in the right people into the design build, into the design assist, bringing the sub trades in, thinking about procurement process from a contractor. But you've alluded to it, there's a huge opportunity for innovative solutions that start to solve other issues we have, right?
Mhm.
We're speeding up design, schedules are lengthening, we have rework, we have people that are burnt out, we have people leaving the industry, like all of those things are true. And I'm not saying this is a silver bullet, but it feels like design build collaboration is bringing it back in control of the humans to learn how to make, take these action steps of utilizing a delivery model, utilizing, virtual design as a way to work with the group inside the model, as well as working with subtrades, specialty subs, manufacturers, prefab companies, and all of
Yeah.
that area. That can get us moving to the right direction of solving some of the other issues. How do you think about that? What did I
Yeah.
miss? What other opportunities you see?
Yeah, I think the important thing is none of these ideas are a silver bullet. Standalone, there's opportunities for success, but it's when you aggregate these, right? How do you reimagine how your team works together? How is that team procured through a different project delivery model? How are you going to use technology? How do you start integrating industrialized construction? How do
Mhm.
you start thinking about the way we share and use information? How is our contract set up? I think these are all as individual things, there's incremental success, but when you aggregate them, it's very valuable. I look at it, with some of the work that we're doing at, DBIA, right? We already have design build, right? We already talked
Right.
about that. We're promoting what the best practice is. So I have the opportunity to come in and say, hey, here's all these technologies. You're probably using these in disconnected ways because of the way your project's done, and you're just focused on producing construction documents and it's going out the door. But if you're on a design build project, where are you going to host your information? Now
Right.
you're sharing information live and you're on the cloud, and your information, that latency of how you share information is no longer there. Your contract isn't one about sign this digital release form that says you can use my model, but you can't rely on it and go to the construction documents, because I
Mhm.
have a VDC project leader at the outset understanding the scope and expectations of what the client's looking for, defining a technology integrated plan to achieve those client and project goals, saying how we're going to collaborate, where we're going to collaborate, what you can use the models for, who's integrating in those, how are we creating our deliverables as a team, as opposed to a bunch of individuals at the end who just mash up a set of PDFs and say, well, here's the architect's drawings that start with an A, here's the structural engineer's drawings that start with an S, and maybe they didn't look at
Right.
one another's stuff. And having a conversation, hey, if we're using technology, we have some repetitious components that we're thinking about here. How can we start prefabbing those? How can we modularize those? How can we be off site and be constructing things over here while we're building and roll it in? And oh, by the way, maybe the owner wants to use this information at the end of the day. We understood that from them at the beginning. We can plan for that, embed that information, and turn it over. Those are all, once those all start coming together, then it snowballs and you have these bigger efficiencies, and then you learn for the next project and try to replicate that, right? Hey,
Right.
we did this on the last project. We had our mechanical trade partner, and we understood a heck of a lot more about how we are going to build this. When I had my curtain wall manufacturer in, I understood all this information that I didn't know before, and I would have done it
Right.
differently, and it would have cost us time and money.
Right.
So how do we do all those? Once you start combining all of these innovations from the industry that's out there, that's where you see success.
Yeah. I mean, there's an opportunity to accelerate, that growth by the exponential growth by, hey, you try it once. I mean,
Mhm.
I always try
Yeah.
to tell everybody is like your first try is never your best in anything
Yep.
that you do in life. So it is going to take its time. We have been doing it this, another way for a long time.
Yep.
And if you're new into the industry, like you're working with people who where that is true, and you
Yeah.
may be seeing a lot of these new shiny things, and sales reps coming in and doing CUs, and everyone's seeing it, and we get into technology again fatigue or change fatigue, where
Yeah.
we bring a technology in, and it didn't stick because we didn't have any sort of change management or human connection
Yeah.
to it in an office. And then you layer on top of this, like, oh, I've got to go into a project in a different model. So as humans, we do feel like everything's stacking on us. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have time to learn. But you're talking about the opportunity for innovation there. And I think there's also just, I was having a conversation with a young designer, I think it was last year, about a project that we were kind of talking about the challenge within the industry. And it came down to, well, the project was over budget because found out the labor crew was not available or didn't even exist, or their labor price, they didn't have enough labor, so therefore their price went up. And it's like, wouldn't you have liked to known that ahead of time?
Yeah.
Like before you selected
Yeah.
it? Like what if there was a model that you could do that? And that's when I work with young people to get them to understand is like, if you get a chance, even on a TI or a new build or whatever it is, be curious enough to ask, like, or is there another delivery model we could look at besides
Yeah.
this? Um, but I do want to see what your thoughts are on this. And I know, being there, there's 50 states, there's 50 different rules around contract modeling.
Yeah.
There's a big push, I know, within Ohio, and you and I both know this, like how some of the hospitals were built by the Ohio State University, right? Like alternative delivery models were being reviewed and are being
Yeah.
reviewed. So we can talk about the private sector, but I feel like because of our infrastructure, because of a lot of the ways things are going to need to be built through public funding or other areas, like as a country, like what are we missing by not exploring? And I'm sure there's, all kinds of people talking to policymakers out there in the states and things, but like there's real opportunity with our current approach to building for
Yeah.
states to look at this differently.
I mean, I think, some owners think their opportunity is the low bid, right? I got
Hmm.
a low first cost, and then they don't realize till the end of the project that it wasn't the overall cost. And I think, there's a lot of things that, that perception is, commonplace. It's also, it's the devil that you know, right?
Right.
Like, I know how this is gonna work. I know I'm gonna have these pain points, but I'm comfortable with that. I know how to deal with it. I don't have time to take on a new workflow or a new direction.
Right.
And I think, design build is one of multiple, you have CM at risk is more collaborative
Right.
than design bid build. It's not as collaborative as design build. But you're still seeing that model evolve as well.
Right.
Everything's more collaborative than design bid build. We want the industry to go all of those. And if you come off a design build project, take those lessons learned and apply to the next project. I mean, that's that opportunity to build it. But I think it does come down, to that culture change and management and, the risk side of it, which gets people, that's where people kind of tense up. And I think it's whether it's project delivery or technology, that's the challenge. And, one of the things I wanted to kind of respond to one of the things you said before about, that change management on the technology side, the tech fatigue. There's so
Mhm.
many new tools that are coming out there, and I think one of the big faults that we have is somebody acquiring a technology and looking for a problem to solve
Yeah.
instead of identifying a problem and finding a tool that aligns to solve that. I think that's where tech fatigue has and will continue to come in. And that's a challenge. We talk about people process technology. Hey, Ryan comes off a project and says, "Man, we're just dealing with this every time. It's all these things. This is our challenge. What can we do?" All right, then you build a process and a framework to solve that challenge and bring in the tool to solve it. So it just goes back to the people side, like you talked about, but that's another aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
So people get jaded once, and then they're apprehensive. Hey, I don't have time to bring something else on. I know I can get this done in this time frame with my old way. There may be a more efficient way, but I don't have time to do it right now.
Yeah. It's such a common thing that I hear. And I think every time I do a recording or a podcast with somebody, we end up into this area of, what I tried to help people understand is like, you need to understand your own relationship with change,
Hmm.
how you see it, so that you can then see how other people react to it. Because, we're time poor because we are more resistant to change, maybe no more than any other humans, but we tend to try something once and then immediately think, well, that didn't work
Yeah.
in this industry because it is so, we look at risk as it's just a huge dollar amount. But there's billions of dollars that are, all the studies show like being wasted because we're not as efficient and effective. Well, you
Hmm.
can't try something once and be good at it, as we talked about, but also learning to explore it's a bigger thing than solving a result of a problem, right? Like if
Yeah.
you are only looking at the result and you don't drill into finding out like what is at the core issue, like you said. So I thank you for sharing that, because I think that is fundamentally, whether it's, taking on design build as an opportunity. You mentioned CMR at risk. There's obviously other ones that are out there in that collaborative area, but there's huge opportunity to look at it from a perspective of a small project all the way up,
Yep.
to at least explore and recognize that, hey, it may not go exactly as planned this time, but do recognize that right now is not where I want to be. Current
Yeah.
state is not that
Yeah.
comfortable. You and I align in a lot of ways from the technology and the innovation opportunity that exists.
Mm.
But I think because this is my personal view, because we're stuck believing that we don't have time, believing that we just don't have time to learn or try,
Yeah.
that obstacle in our own mind, and because it's one person in a team in a company within a project team, like we're impacting more than those in the construction industry. we're
Yeah.
we're impacting every human that is in our community, in our state, within the country, because this is our, like, we have to solve it, sort of moment, because 500,000 labor forces short every year. Who's going to build it? like,
Yep.
we can't continue to delay. We all recognize it, but we may say that's a huge issue and I'm just one person. How can I solve it? So my question to you would be then, Brian, like, what does success for the industry look like from your perspective? Like, what would that success be that you were like, we've nailed it?
I think, being able to track success goes back to being able to, measure what's important, right? I think we only, tend to look at things at the end of the day, or we don't have a lot of good metrics on how we do things. But from DBIA's perspective and the perspective that I brought to it, right? We want to be able to achieve design excellence. We want to have increased quality and productivity on the job site, and we
Hmm.
want to be able to improve the life cycle cost of the built environment for the owners. I think one of the things that I'm excited about and we're having the opportunity to do is, with our members, through many different outlets that we have, whether I'm out on, in our regions and chapters, meeting and speaking and presenting with people, or it's through our awards program, we're seeing benchmarks now of where people are seeing success in leveraging technology and design build. We're
Hmm.
getting ROIs. It's not just the anecdotal, we had less coordination issues, right? Okay, everybody says
Right.
that in a submission. We're seeing dollars, right? We had a blog post. It was a food service project from Haskell. They tracked where they went through and found they spent like $200,000 in their labor hours in the trade coordination process, and they saved 2.5 million on the project.
Hmm.
Right, that's a huge dollar. We're seeing small projects, 40,000 square foot healthcare projects that are leveraging prefab because they were planned out at the beginning,
Right.
and showing that, hey, we did this 60% faster. We saved 30% on materials. We saved this. We're starting to see all of these different opportunities for success where people are realizing these things by merging these different innovation opportunities, and it's
Hmm.
becoming quantifiable because it's no longer, success isn't, oh, we do BIM, right?
Right.
Back in '05, '07, you said, hey, our office does BIM. Oh, cool. Whoa, wait, check these guys out.
You won the contract. Congrats.
They got this whiz bang new software they're using, right? That's what people say. Here's a picture of a model we made, and that was it. Now, I mean, that's table stakes, right?
Right.
That's not a differentiator. We use technology to design and construct our projects more efficiently. This is how we do it. These are the savings and opportunities that we're bringing to the projects to be able to deliver this for you. So I think for us, that's where we see success, to be able to have those quantifiable metrics around those three areas at the end of the day.
Hmm.
That's where success lies.
Yeah, I think you said something that's very intriguing to me. You said the data piece, and the design builds. DBIA started in the early '90s, right? Obviously, it
Mhm.
was talked about before then, but so
Yeah.
that's not new. But this introduction of all the technology throughout our lives is accelerating and constantly continues to accelerate. But and this is what I've seen, and I think you brought this up a lot of times, and this we want the data. Well, how did it go last time? Show us some success. Show us that you've done this.
Yeah.
Show us, that data. Well, data follows execution, and it doesn't really flush out in 2 months, one project, right?
Mhm.
And with an industry that is spread all, take every state, every contractor, the millions of people that are in it, we're all impacting that data. Like
Yeah.
we all have an opportunity to impact it as a positive or a negative of how it rolls. But this goes back to that human piece of I want 100% clarity that this is going to go exactly as you say it's going to go. And you made the great point of like, hey, we're now finally getting data and able to start showing it. It doesn't mean it'll go exactly that way for you
Yeah.
because it is other humans getting involved. But if we're able to, again, connecting the human to the change they're about to go through in the delivery model or new technology or a process, and having some empathy in that piece, then the data will only continue to increase our opportunity and return on investment for, as you said, the design team, architects and interior designers, engineers, to the construction teams, to fabricators and all of them, but ultimately also to the owner and all the occupants that are going inside of that buildings.
Yeah, I think we also need to plan for that though, right? I think the other challenge is you can't at the end of the project and say, well, how'd we do? Right. And all you
Right.
really have is, your budget and scope. But
Right.
what contributed to that? Being able to track and look and manage that at the outset to say, hey, these are the key performance indicators that we're looking for in this project. How are we doing? It's not a end of the day yes or no. It's not a
Right.
pass fail type answer. You have to approach that. And you have to be strategic about it and understand how you're going to aggregate that data that you're going to analyze at the end of the day. And
Hmm.
certainly every project's not the same, right? They all have their own challenges. It's how you react and pivot and maneuver through those challenges to get to the end. That's why you want to look at things in a cumulative nature, but you got to understand what the actions and reactions were and what the root causes of certain things were to be able to look at it critically, look at that data critically at the end of the
Right.
day.
Right. It's a great point, because I do, as you said, it's like we didn't know how to collect it in the first place. Now it's having a
Yeah.
plan and an action that, again, that information that you're collecting is about you getting more clarity as an individual, but also as a team to kind of move
Yeah.
forward and improve. So, one last question then for you before we wrap up. We're sitting here having this conversation. Someone's listening. Like, what's some action steps that you would recommend? If they're interested in design build, they'd never seen it, never heard of it, which would be probably unrealistic, but maybe have never utilized it in a contract form, as well as anything within that BDC area that you're focusing on in innovation.
Yeah. I mean, I would, we unfortunately, we just had our annual conference, which would have been a great opportunity to attend, but go to our website, right? There's a ton of information that we have. Go to the bookstore. We have a series of position statements and primers. You mentioned
Hmm.
we have 3 different VDC documents that are already on there. We're getting ready to start working on a 4th one. But just educational materials, learn what the opportunity is. There's how to choose a project delivery model. We have one that's focused on progressive design build. The difference is we have those that are tailored to different market segments, whether it's the commercial, vertical building market, which we're talking about, or if it's transportation,
Hmm.
aviation, water, wastewater, if it's federal projects, where are all the nuances? Learn more about it, understand how it could start to apply. Talk to your owners about it. Talk to your builders, your designers that you work with, and odds are they've probably done something. Find that ideal project to get engaged in, and just continue to push forward and learn.
Well, great. I mean, I think every opportunity starts with a little spark of curiosity to ask those
Yeah.
questions and explore, like you're saying. And I do think there's some great information out on the DBIA website. Brian is obviously a tremendous resource and has been in a lot of your shoes, inside firms and practicing, architecture to his whole career path and to now working through all of this with the DBIA. So I'm grateful that you were willing to spend some time. I hope it wasn't too painful. Your voice is out there. There is a DBI podcast I know that they can listen to as well,
Yep.
um, which is another great resource and hear some of those stories. But um, wanted to have the conversation because I think it is it does release an opportunity for innovation, as you're describing, in a lot of these areas that can get us more efficient,
Yep.
more connected as humans, and a collaborative approach to delivering projects that we can all be proud of, but also feel less burnout, feel like we're solving beyond the construction of that project something bigger for the industry. So, again, thanks for your time, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so everyone knows, where is the next conference or the national conference next year?
The annual national conference will be in Cleveland, Ohio, the first week in November.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it being from Cleveland. So that's great. All right, Brian, we'll talk to you
See you
soon.
there.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye. So that is our episode with Brian Skripac with the DBIA, Design Build Institute of America. Brian has a tremendous amount of experience around a lot of different areas within the construction industry, starting within architecture, working within, from a BIM modeling standpoint, and transferring over now with the DBIA and focus on kind of that technology and innovation piece and how that relates to a construction delivery model. And I am passionate about this conversation because it relates to a lot of the things that I have done throughout my career and past, and where I've seen huge opportunity to gain that efficiency that Brian was talking about. And I know we talked about it briefly in the conversation, but efficiency doesn't mean that you have to just get everything out faster all the time. It literally means that you're doing the most important things that create the greatest results for all parties involved. And there's an opportunity through these delivery models, and the DBIA or design build it's not an alternative anymore. It is 47 to 50% of all contracts are now kind of heading towards that collaborative approach. But there's still a lot of groups and people who do not utilize it or don't question it or don't think about it. And by not doing that, it's not allowing us to evolve and test some of these innovations that are coming at us. Brian also gave the warning sign. You don't have to just bring something in because you want to, and you don't really have that problem just because somebody's trying to sell you a software solution. You have to step back in your business and you have to understand what it is you really want to achieve from a business standpoint, wherever you exist in the construction industry. And you look at these softwares as the right tool that you would utilize. Does it solve more than one problem for more than one person, more than one time? And then you have to build an implementation process and a strategy around it and have all of those things that Brian was kind of alluding to in the conversation. So I'm sure we'll be talking with others around similar conversations coming up in future podcasts, but I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you follow up by looking on the Design Build website, downloading some of that information. If you are part of the organization and membership, go out, spread it around, talk to other people, and help them understand it. If it is new territory for them, then understand you have to have the empathy to help them get through that as well. But if we all start to ask different questions, spark that curiosity, then we can begin to solve some of the larger challenges that we're all seeing and facing and get out of this time poor area and into an efficient, rich zone where we are actually all feeling like we are driving towards something better. So until next time, I hope you all stay well, and I hope you all continue to activate curiosity within yourself and within others.
The Activating Curiosity podcast is brought to you by Connective Consulting Group and Connective Coaching, part of the Curiosity Building Experiences. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a conversation. Share the podcast with your network and help us bring more curiosity to the construction industry. Interested in becoming a guest or a sponsor? Visit us at activatingcuriosity.buzzsprout.com for more details. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity.